Good evening. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Ishan Russell. Tonight, we focus on the big thing that happened on the second day of budget session of Parliament, the land acquisition bill and the uproar over it. The united opposition, yes, it was all united, almost all opposition parties coming together, taking on the government, saying that this bill is not good in this present form. The government, though, on its part, has been saying that we'll take all your opposition suggestions on board. We'll amend the bill suitably and then we can move forward. But the stalemate still continues on this particular issue, and we'll be talking to various representatives from political parties about this. Jaiveer Shelgill, spokesperson of the Congress party, joins us in the studio. We're also joined by Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe, Vice President of the BJP, and Saurabh Bhardwaj, leader of the Aam Aadmi Party, joins us as well. Remember, the Aam Aadmi Party, of course, all 67 of their Delhi MLAs were today with Anna Hazare, who's also holding a protest over this issue at his old stomping ground of Jantar Mantar. So the land acquisition bill has certainly become a big issue, and let's try to understand first the positions that have been adopted by each of these parties, how they differ from each other and what they're really trying to say. Jaiveer, I'll start with you in terms of the Congress. I mean, this is something that the Congress had brought in. I mean, land acquisition was one of the landmark sort of achievements for the previous UPA government. Now that bill has been changed about, so what is your contention and what exactly do you want from the government? What is the meeting point?
Ishan, I have four specific points. You know, as far as this ordinance and now the bill is concerned, BJP has literally set a cat amongst pigeons as far as the farmers are concerned or the poor people are concerned. Now, there are three aspects to this specific. Number one, the changes that are sought to be brought in. You compare this with the 2013 law and with the 1894 law. Second is the manner and the methodology in which these changes were brought in. Third is the BJP's general anti-stand, anti-poor stand since they come into power. Four, their complete U-turn. Now, what was the biggest criticism of the draconian colonial law? Number one, people's voice wasn't represented, no consent clause. The displaced people, mind you, India has the number one in highest displaced people all over the world as far as projects are concerned. Right. Number three, multi-irrigated lands were being acquired in the name of public interest. So 2013 laws sought to change all of this to give right to those farmers. Look at these amendments. By amending section 10A, they brought in 5 broad categories. Now, look at historically, future, world over, any kind of acquisition can be done under the label of these 5 projects. Right. Second, we had a specific clause. If you acquire a land, it is not utilized, it will be returned to you. They have weaved in this clause which say, if the project is not over, still it will not be utilized. So they have changed the soul and intent. Third, I don't know, my BJP friend will remember Vinay Katiyar, subject to correction, when this bill was tabled in the parliament, when UPA, he was the first one to say 70 and 80% clause won't do. We want 100% consent, otherwise this is anti-farmer. Right. Now suddenly that situation has changed. How? We are still battling. Number 4, in their hurried manner, arrogance, till date they have not passed the litmus test of Article 123. Which big mega ticket project was being stalled that you had to ultimately bring in the ordinance today? And still, I have not heard any, either the PM or the minister, that how do these amendments stand the test or the interest of the farmers? Right. There is no explanation whatsoever.
All right, you made your opening remarks. I want to quickly go across to the Aam Aadmi Party representative, Saurabh Bhardwaj, before we come to you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, to counter this. Saurabh, as far as the Aam Aadmi Party is concerned, I mean, this is an issue that is relatively new to your party in terms of the agitation. How do you intend to go about it? We saw your party members participate with Anna Hazare in the protest. Do you plan more agitation such as this?
The fact of the matter is that the current central government, the BJP government, in its 8 months of rule has, positioned itself as a anti-poor, pro-corporate government, and this perception is very wide. Everybody believes and perceives this government as a only pro-corporate government, a pro-corporate party. And this is what we have always been opposing, this crony capitalism, favoring capitalists, favoring corporates, and this is again one of the blatant examples of the current central government. And I think Anna Hazare has raised a very valid point, especially in the time when most of the political parties like Congress, others have lost their relevance, they have lost their credibility among the people. I think there is a need for people or mass leaders like Anna Hazare to raise these relevant issues, and political parties across the spectrum should participate in his struggle and should support him, because they still have the credibility in the society.
All right, so you made your opening remarks, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. We'll come to you. You've heard the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress, but it certainly is a lot about perception as well as the technicalities of the bill itself.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, can you hear me?
Yeah, now, but I didn't catch up the last sentences which you said.
All right, I was just saying that the Aam Aadmi Party said that it's a matter of perception that the government is being viewed as pro-rich, and also the Congress saying that as far as the bill is concerned, a lot of technical issues in that are anti-farmer. Your defense, sir?
Well, I won't go by this art of labeling. I mean, somebody saying that this is a pro-rich government or something. I think this is politics of perception. And basically what our friends in the opposition party are basically trying for is to raise passions on an issue about which they themselves have different views, which many of the Congress ministers have voiced at certain occasions. Especially on June 27 last year, the Ministry of Rural Development had organized a meeting of all the revenue ministers, and I can cite examples what the Congress ministers themselves have said. See, this new ordinance has not come one fine morning, somebody dreamt of some kind of changes and the ordinance was promulgated. That is not the case. There is a process behind, and everybody should know that people were taken on board, their suggestions were sought, and having analyzed the feedback which we received from various states, Congress states included, I can cite examples after examples. For example, Prithviraj Chauhan, he had voiced grievances about certain aspects of the law. I am aware that Revenue Minister of Assam, Prithviraj Majhi, he also had certain reservations which he had expressed about several provisions. So even the communists, I mean, Aam Aadmi Party is taking a line which is the communist line kind of, but they also have some reservations, and I can give examples how these reservations
Dr. Sahasrabudhe, there are even your allies, the NDA allies. I mean,
all these things into consideration.
Even your allies, the Shiv Sena has come out and said that we won't allow anything anti-farmer to come about. The SSS walked out of parliament today. The BKS, the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, that is one of the Sangh organizations, is opposed to this. So in terms of consultations, I mean, the BJP finally set up an 8-member committee to get in farmers' views. So does that not convey a message that perhaps the BJP jumped the gun as far as the land acquisition bill is concerned?
No, that is not the case. The process was earlier also happening, but this time we have just kind of made it more structured and a formal kind of a process. It doesn't happen this way. I mean, every time consultations happen, within the party also there were elaborate consultations. We have our own Kisan Morcha, they were consulted, but still there was some misunderstanding at certain quarters, and we just wanted to do away with that, which is why we have set up a committee. But basically I would like to emphasize here that there is an enhanced scope of the benefits of this act. Earlier 13 acts were kind of excluded. Now all those acts have been included in it, so naturally it is in the interest of the farmers beyond doubt. Secondly, there is some kind of an act of balancing, because we just want to be pro-farmer, pro-rural population, pro-unemployed people, and therefore while on the one hand we are here to protect the interest of the farmers, we are also here to protect the interest of the development sector, which is industry and infrastructure projects and every other thing for that matter.
All right, fair enough. Javier, you've been wanting to raise a point.
Two quick comments. Number one, Ishan, it's a fact BJP punched above its weight as far as the ordinance is concerned. Now, two factual errors which was stated. Now there is a remark of 13 laws being extended. The old act had a specific provision. Within 1 year it has to be done. BJP justifies the ordinance to say by 1st January 2015 those were lapsing. Fair enough. The ordinance could have just been brought on that one amendment. What was the need to do a complete whitewash on the consent clause, complete whitewash on the giving back of the land, complete whitewash on SIA? Has my friend from BJP forgotten the horrors of Sardar Sarovar, the entire Narmada Bachao Andolan, the 65 million people who've been displaced? If we weigh the interest of the poor and the farmers with this development project, is comparing an elephant and a quail in the scales. And fortunately or unfortunately, these rhetorics won't work. The devil lies in the detail. They will have to justify on technicalities. A small example. The Act had a clause, 6 months SIA will have to be done, the social impact assessment, before you take over. Now they say we have 5 projects, do away with SIA. How do they plan to rehabilitate those people? The bill is completely silent on that. Today they will have to answer.
But what the government had to say, Javi, today was the fact is that we're willing to debate, discuss the issue, talk about it. We'll take all the amendments on board. That's the message that the Prime Minister also gave to his MPs, that we can take the opposition's amendments, their suggestions on board, but let's have a conversation about it. If there's going to be only confrontation, then how does that conversation happen?
No, Ishan, first thing first. Number one, they'd have to justify how did they misuse Article 123. Bygones cannot be bygones till you justify how did you violate the provision of the Constitution. What was the urgency? This ordinance has a lifeline. By these dealing tactics, they can extend the ordinance if the session gets passed. The law allows them. So today we cannot, by their clever wordplay or these clever theatrics, we cannot allow the ordinance to get a new lease of life.
Right.
They will have to answer us specific questions. We will not allow this bill to be passed. 2013 law has to remain as it is. Otherwise, the ghost of 1894 will be brought back to life, which is completely against the interest of the farmers.
All right, I just want to get in quickly. Neerja Chaudhary, she's a senior journalist, a political analyst, who will help us try to understand the broader picture. You've heard the political parties, but Neerja, as far as the land acquisition bill is concerned, I mean, this is a point that the opposition certainly is rallying around, and the government is on a little bit of a weak foot, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you see that is going to be very difficult to find a way out of the impasse because of competitive politics. Even if some parties want to relent a little bit, if the government is willing to go in for some amendments like the consent clause, the others will not agree to it. Say Samajwadi Party, hypothetically speaking, wants to consider this. The BSP will gun for them, will not leave them. And will paint it as a sellout, no matter what the terms of the agreement. So competitive politics is going to make things very, very difficult to come to an agreement and to get a majority of the opposition parties, which can add up to the requisite number required in the Rajya Sabha, to agree to some amendments to be made, not the 2013 bill to be restored, which is what everybody would agree to. But the government doesn't seem to be in a mood to go back to that. So I don't know how they're going to find a way out, even though the government is showing, it's a mellower government, it's a more flexible government. They want to find a way out, but the whole thing has got very, very messy.
Certainly it has. Neerja, just a quick point on what Dr. Sahasrapur was mentioning, that it's also a question of, the question of growth and infrastructure is also there. How do you push projects? How do you develop infrastructure? And at the same point of time, it's also the question of taking everybody on board. So in that sense, a conundrum as far as the BJP's own politics is concerned.
As far as the infrastructure is concerned, those 5 sectors virtually cover everything under the sun, if you look at that. Secondly, 2013 law, which was very carefully crafted, and the BJP was brought on board, it was done with concurrence. Now to undo that is going to be very, very difficult. And can you leave out the consent of those who are going to be vitally affected with the acquisitions? In this day and age, it's going to be very difficult. And as we have seen from the Delhi poll results, the farming community is extremely agitated about it. And Anna Hazare is reopening a movement in Delhi. We'll see in the coming days, what impact it has. But certainly it affected the poll prospects of the BJP, which had done very well in those rural seats in 2013 assembly elections in Delhi, but was a complete wipeout in this time.
Absolutely. Dr. Sahasraputhy, you've heard the analyst say that as far as the impasse on this is concerned, it certainly seems it's not going anywhere. And given the fact that the BJP had agreed to the last time the land acquisition bill was brought in, this time do you think a rollback and that kind of a tag would be a little worrisome for the government? Do you think that's on the BJP's mind right now?
Well, that is not the case. As I am saying, I have been repeatedly saying that this is a kind of a act or a legislation which has been brought after careful homework that was done by the relevant ministry right since after the new government took over. We had several meetings, and having taken the feedback from different states and most of the Congress states, and I can quote what kind of feedback we had received from them. Only after all these things were taken into consideration, the act has been given a shape. So now it is incumbent upon all other parties also not to play politics with development, not to raise passions on this issue. Let us sit together, let us analyze the things. There could be a give and take as what the government has already signaled, and then let us evolve consensus around that, because this is essential for the development of infrastructure which is in the interest of the poor people. We are saying about the housing, for example, housing for the disadvantaged and deprived sections. Now, are our friends opposed to that?
Right, but at the end of the day, Dr.
Therefore, I
Sahasraputhy,
believe some kind of cool-headed approach is required, rational approach is required.
All right.
Then only these things can be taken.
All right, we're also joined by Aditi Phadnis, political editor of the Business Standard in the studio, and we'll just come to her in a bit, because Saurabh Bhardwaj, you've been raising your hand for a bit and wanted to add something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is, that the government and the BJP are trying to cleverly position this whole debate as a debate of farmers versus development, of farmers versus youth, of farmers versus employment opportunities. However, it is not. This is basically a debate of poor versus the corporate houses, and this is what we and all other political parties are trying to emphasize. All the good positive features of the Act of 2013 have been taken away in this amendment, and BJP was a national party in 2013. They had readily consented to all the things which were provided by Sumita Mahajan committee report. So what has changed within a year? They were a national party, so they have to explain it to the whole nation, what has changed, that they have done a complete big mega U-turn.
Absolutely. That is what the opposition's charge is. Aditi Phadnis, you've heard the opposing points of view. But on this, how does it really move forward? What happens now? Because all eyes are on whether the government muscles its way through this bill through the Lok Sabha, and then it gets stalled in the Rajya Sabha because the numbers aren't that conducive.
It's a conundrum. There's no doubt about it. There is no doubt that the BJP supported this. Mr. Bhardwaj is absolutely right. The BJP voted in consonance with the government, with the Congress and the UPA and the NCP and all the other elements of the UPA for the land reform bill. But at that time, the focus was largely on compensation and how much compensation has to be paid, etc., etc. The fine print now is hitting the people in the head. It's true that there are corporate houses which feel that no industry will ever come up in India.
Does that argument hold good, the development versus the farmer versus development argument?
I wouldn't put it quite so dramatically as farmer versus development, but certainly the speed at which you will acquire land will slow down. You cannot acquire land. It will take much longer to acquire land than it used to previously. Having said that, you need to address the issue of livelihood, you need to address the issue of livelihood security, which is essentially what the SIA is, the social impact analysis is. There are not just people who earn a livelihood from the land, working the land, but also those who sell tea there, those who sell biscuits there, those who sell homemade products there. Their livelihoods is also important. So if they lose the land, then how do you address that problem?
Absolutely.
My understanding is that the government is thinking of coming up with some via media, which will maybe mean that if you acquire a certain parcel of land, beyond that threshold, you will necessarily have to do SIA.
All right.
and there are other things which are in the works. Now, I'm not sure if the government is going to, if the opposition is going to accept this, but this is something that is in the works. No law, just as the Land Acquisition Act of 1894 or whenever it was, has outlived its utility. No law is immutable. No law is true for all times. It has to continuously go through refinement. And we should not pose issues like, is it anti-farmer or is it pro-farmer or is it anti-development? I don't think that is the way to look at it.
All right, so where's the middle ground, Javeer?
Ishan, if you read...
Very quickly, because we are absolutely
the last two comments. If you read the 2013 Act on the bare-bone text, it strikes a fine balance. You earlier never had a private company acquiring a land for public purpose that was given. To protect the farmer, you had a 2x and a 4x compensation formula. Going forward, only way 2013 law has to survive as it stands today.
All right, so that's the Congress's take, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. But it's really the ball's in the BJP's court. How does it move forward from here? How do you build consensus? Parliament has to function. You have the budget coming up. There are a whole host of, there are 6 ordinances, including the land acquisition, that you need to get clear. How does the government want to do this? How does the government plan to go about this?
Let me once again emphasize the point that this act or the ordinance has come after an elaborate process of deliberations. We took the feedback. Now let my Congress friends say that whatever the views expressed by their own state governments, are we not supposed to take those views in consideration? Whatever the views by different states belonging to different parties have expressed, and in a very structured manner, whatever their suggestions, are we not supposed to take them into consideration? If we have done it in that way, it is necessary that the Congress and other opposition parties also behave in a more responsible manner, enter into a dialogue with the government, engage in some kind of a give and take, and help the government to arrive at some consensus, which is what is required. And as was rightly pointed out, let us not indulge in the art of labeling that this is pro-poor, this is pro-development. See, after all, development is for the benefit of the poor only. I mean, if employment is going to be more, then it is going to be benefiting the poor, not the rich persons of the society, rich sections of the society. And therefore, let us have a holistic approach. Let us have a cool-headed
cool-headed approach. But Aditi Phadnis, did the government miss a trick in terms of just bridging the divide before the session started? The acrimony that we witnessed in the last session, that certainly was a little bit of it was carried forward, and we're seeing that.
See, my theory is that the last session did not see any substantive acrimony. The acrimony was all because people said things in Parliament, outside Parliament, having nothing to do with stuff that was going on in Parliament. So you had somebody speaking on conversion, somebody speaking on something else. All that had nothing to do with the business which was on the table. And it was just irresponsible speech, which obviously riled the opposition. So if that is not the way to go about it, this time I find that BJP is extremely circumspect, NDA is extremely circumspect about what they say about what. The situation is not improved when slights are cast on somebody who has been, anointed as saint by the Vatican. I don't think they are in their provenance to say that.
Right.
But all that queers the pitch, and that is what queered the pitch in the winter session. Right. If they are serious about this, then they will have a consultation process. And as I said, no law is immutable. You can't have a law which is true for all time.
All right, fair enough. So we've absolutely run out of time. I mean, the differences still remain, and let's see whether the political parties can bridge their divide and really overcome the opposing side that we've taken as far as the land acquisition bill is concerned. Aditi Phadnis, of course, will be keeping a track of all those developments, and she'll update us and let us know what's been happening. But thank you very much, Javeer, for coming in. Aditi, it was a pleasure to have you over here, as always. Dr. Sahasrabudhe and Gaurav, thank you very much for being part of this show. Well, that's it on the big picture for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think as well. Rajya Sabha TV has a website. Go there and check it out.